Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, should anyone be joining us from Europe. And thank you for joining us today. My name is Jennifer Gill, and I am the Director of Product Marketing at Zerto. And today we're going to be talking with Jayme Williams from TenCate Corporation about his experience with disaster recovery. So before I move on from the first slide, the one thing I do like to point out is our awards, because we are very proud of them. So you can see in 2011 we had a very good year, getting Best of Show at VMworld, as well as the Gold Award for Business Continuity and Data Protection. And since then we've gotten other awards from Storage Magazine and Tech Target along the same lines for disaster recovery excellence. So here's our agenda for today. So we will look at the speakers. We'll talk about TenCate Corporation. You'll learn a little bit about what they do, their environment, the challenges they had with BCD DR, and then the purchasing process and why they chose Zerto. And then we'll go through a Zerto overview of the product and see if you want to learn more. And one quick housekeeping thing that I didn't mention, questions. If you want to ask us any questions, we are happy to take them. If you look in the panel that's on the right-hand side of your screen, at least that's where it showed up for me, there's a questions tab. You can open that up and type in any questions that you would like. And one question that we get often is this presentation available? And yes, it is. We are recording this, and we'll be posting it on our website as well as on our Bright Talk channel. So you will be able to find this probably in about a week or so. It will be available. Okay, so with us today we have Jayme Williams, who's a Senior Systems Engineer. He has over 20 years of IT experience, including a stint as a business owner, providing IT services for small businesses. So his key responsibilities at TenCate include all the management of the VMware environment, including provisioning, host storage, deployment, maintenance. He's responsible for disaster recovery and backups, all the processes associated with that, as well as the infrastructure, the entire Microsoft Exchange environment. And something that might be applicable to some of you is as they acquire new companies and they have these disparate systems with different types of storage, different types of VMware vSphere, etc., Jayme works to integrate all of those into the TenCate infrastructure to try and provide a level of consistency. And you'll see that Zerto has a role in that. So at that time, I will turn it over to Jayme.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jayme. I've been working here at TenCate for going on over 6 years. We are a textile technology group. This specific business, we provide base-level products to the end user, or to the end manufacturer, I'm sorry, that then provides to the end user. But we are in a multitude of different markets. We're also multinational. Our products are sold worldwide. Some of them were on the Mars lander, all the way down to flame-resistant utilities that service members wear once they're over in theater. We have corporate offices. We have 3 shared service centers in EMEA and Kuala Lumpur and here in Atlanta. But we have offices that range from Brazil to France, UK, Australia, all around the world. As you can see, we have around 4,500 employees. We did relatively well, 6.8 million right now in the first half of 2013. So we're still chugging along fairly well. If we move to our next slide, you'll see that what we moved from is a totally physical environment to a virtualized environment, and this allowed us our HA and our DRS functions that we just didn't have before. We relied on a pizza box for an application. If that box went down, we had to bring up, install updates, reinstall, and recoup, determine if it was worth, restoring that application, that server from tape in a traditional manner, rebuilding it, starting over. Virtualization really changed that for us. So right now I am at 100% virtualization. So I've got around Around 147 VMs supporting ERP applications, 2012 file servers, Crystal reports, business objects. We have implemented a number of automation servers at remote sites that run floor equipment that take care of all the manufacturing processes. We actually P2V'd some blade servers and moved everything to virtualization just because it makes everything so much easier. We do support Citrix farms. We have a Citrix farm in our data center here in the Americas, as well as a Citrix farm in Austria, as well as Microsoft SharePoint. We like to use SharePoint instead of CIF shares to make it just easier to browse, easier to get to, and keep it in a browser interface for users. We have environmentally, a lot of locations around the globe. We replicate between our data centers. We have some opcos that replicate data between just the opco site to site. And we're trying to globalize that, bring it all together so that if anyone has to help any of these people, we have a common factor. We know where to go to troubleshoot. We know how it should work. We know how it should look, and not 10 different ways to do the same single process. Right now, I'm protecting 15 virtual machines with about 5 terabytes of information with Zerto. One of these locations has only got a 3 meg connection, so I didn't really know what to expect with that location. But later on, I'll share with you what's going on with that. That comes into some of those disparate systems that we were talking about just a minute ago. So challenges with backup recovery and disaster recovery. Protection and availability of the environment, anyone's environment, is critical, and especially the downtime, and defining that downtime and what is acceptable, I found, is extremely different in the IT community than from the end user. So to me, 20 minutes, 30 minutes as a first line RPO, may have been acceptable, but to a user, they're like, I got to have it in 15 minutes. So defining and understanding what the user's expectation is on downtime and RPO and RTO is really critical. And like I just alluded to, we had some pretty aggressive RTO times, RPO times, things that that I thought I was well in suit, that everyone would be happy. I soon found out that some C-level folks and even the folks down on the floor creating the actual product, wouldn't be too happy if I had to fall back to those times. With virtualization, a lot of that mentality changed. We moved away from tape. We moved away from the traditional means and ways of backing up. You had to evolve. You had to keep up. So that strategy, enabled us to do things faster and better. But we also had to learn, how to harness and how to bring this stuff in and understand what we were doing to meet what the end user expected of us. We have a number of locations that had limited bandwidth because of locations that have things like land application systems that have to be out and away or near a water source or things like that. So connectivity is a challenge. Finding companies that can supply us. We usually have limited ISP options, so what we have is what we have. We don't have a lot of bargaining room at some of these locations. We've also done with a lot of these systems is have a key point person at these locations, but not an IT staff. So we have someone who takes on the responsibility of funneling those questions and things like that up to the shared service center, so that we don't have a lot of boots on the ground at these places. So virtualization also helps us to be able to manage that stuff, to see what's going on a single pane of glass and vCenter or other tools as well. We have the appropriately named Hit by a Bus book that was developed for disaster recovery. It's really complex. If any of you guys have tried to work through a disaster recovery scenario where you go and camp out at a DR site and recover from tape or any of the traditional means and bring up Active Directory, restore a fully functional instance of an application, which usually is a front-end server, a SQL server, a reporting server. It's very complex. It involves multiple people. If one thing goes wrong, it throws everything else off, and it's really difficult, frustrating, and demoralizing when you go through that for a weekend and you end up at the end saying, the only thing we could do is reinstall Active Directory. That's as far as we got. So what we started looking at is our vCenter Site Recovery Manager. We evaluated this product when we were really small into virtualization, just starting out. So it was one of those things that was nice and it would be neat to have, but at the time I really didn't see it as I've got to have this. I can't sleep at night without this. I thought I had it covered with backup exec, writing to LTO tape, and I was happy with the traditional means, the traditional way of backing up. If we went to SRM, we had to change our SANs behind the scenes, had to restructure some things. We lost some DRS. We lost some of the capabilities that we purchased VMware for in the first place. So I went back to our VAR, and our VAR then recommended Zerto. He said they were no longer going the SRM path, that they had found Zerto, evaluated it, vetted it, and recommended that we do a proof of concept with Zerto. So I did a POC call one morning with a couple of guys from Zerto. We did the initial installation at each of our data centers here in the Americas, and we got it installed. We got the two sites linked. We set up our first VPG, and I went from there. While I was on the phone, the Zerto team, they demonstrated how to move VMs. We went through failovers, how to set the tasks, how to set up VPGs, how to push the virtual replication appliances out to the remote sites, and it impressed me at how easy it was to go to the tools, push VPG, it spins up the OVF, pushes it out to the remote site, spins it up, makes it available, and you can start protecting yourself. And with SRM, it just wasn't that simplistic. It wasn't that easy, and the price point was a lot higher, and not getting the ease of deployment and use that we were out of Zerto. This could have prevented what we had. We call it the virus incident of 2013, where we got a virus on a file server, a physical file server. It was the last physical file server that I was tasked with virtualizing. I was using DFS to replicate these files onto a virtual server. It did get a virus on it and ended up shutting down the physical server and starting up the virtual server in 3 days of virus scans, cleanup, and removal. It was contained to that virtual server, ensued after that, so I spent a lot of time recovering from it. And if I had had Zerto, they have a really neat tool, a really neat function that I refer to as the TiVo, where I could have, basically the journaling function, I could have spun this VM back to a point in time 2 minutes, 5 minutes before the virus actually hit the server, and been good to go. So my 3-4 days of cleanup, recuperation, hitting hosts, making sure all the hosts were clean at sites and everything was under control, I could have done in minutes. I could have spun that VM back and put it to that point in time and been done with it. Okay, and then why we chose Zerto, obviously the simplicity of the installations. I mean, I literally did the proof of concept over the phone with the team, setting up my 2 sites. I had to make no changes to my SAN. I had to make no changes to any of the storage. I just had to click push out the virtual replication or VRAs to the sites that I wanted to protect. I had my hit by a bus book. I have since retired. I plagiarized Zerto's POC document, cut and pastes a lot of their procedures on how to actually go and click the move button, click the test button. So now I'm down to 8 pages for my DR script, and anyone can pick it up and get to the Zerto interface and click the move button. So it's not dependent on one person or 2 people. Anyone can get to the document. Anyone can read, look at this screen, go to this tab and click move or click failed or click failed tests. So the ability for anyone to help us out in the situation to recover, that has made it a lot more comforting to know that anyone can get to that short document, look at the pictures, and follow the move and get us back up and going while other people may be traveling or on the way in to help facilitate. On the delivery, on the promise of virtualization, it's flexible, it's agile. I'm still using DRS, I'm still using my vMotion, I'm still using my storage vMotion. I'm not using tiered storage, but that's coming down the pipe relatively soon. So I lose none of those functions, none of those things. I don't have to tie my VMs to a specific host or a specific blade. And all of the reasons that you have VMware in the first place are still there. This is just another tool laid on top that doesn't interfere, doesn't tie you down, doesn't bind you to. It has to be set up in this way or that way, and you have to disable that service or that function. So our service levels went from, I defaulted most of them to 10 minutes. If I look at them this morning, the longest one I have out on my RPO time in real time is 7 seconds. And that is even on the 3 meg connection of a ERP server that I have sitting out in a opco in California. I am replicating that back to my data center in Atlanta. It's a little over 300 gigs of data that I have a 6-second RPO on. The automation of failover, failback testing, and support is really nice. I've used that. And rather than when I am audited, being able to hand an auditor a spreadsheet or a text document that's dumped out of a test, if they want to, they can sit down and watch. And I can click the tests button, watch the VMs spin up on the opposing side. I can go into those VMs in the console, I set up a tests network, and I can test those applications from end to end, not just this application did spin up at the other data center and I can ping it. Well, that's great unless you go into that application and services aren't starting, things don't work, reporting servers are unable to get at the data and create those reports that people need. So being able to ping it and being functional are 2 totally different things. And I can sit here with the auditor, do a test failover, open a virtual desktop, hit the application, run a report, and say, there you go. And that's also recorded, time-stamped in Zerto, and I get a reminder. Heterogeneous storage has come into play a lot because we have shared storage in our data centers, but we have also single instance boxes sitting out at sites using direct attached storage. So for those, I was using backup exec, and depending on backup exec and a tape drive, and the lady up front that answers the phones for DR. Hoping and praying the tape gets swapped. The tape is good. She isn't on vacation, and no one else is swapping the tape, and knowing it's going to take hours and hours to restore anything from the tape if we can find it afterwards. So with the direct attached storage in Zerto, what I've been able to do is set up a virtual protection group on that direct attached storage and replicate those VMs back into my data center. So it doesn't care that it's direct attached or that it's compellent or that it's equal logic. I don't have to license replication on a compellent SAN. I don't have to pay that because Zerto does all of that for me once I get it installed.
All right, Jayme, thank you so much. That was a really good overview of what's going on at TenCate. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the multi-sites. How many sites, for example, do you have replication happening between? I hope that's not an on-the-spot question.
No. I got vCenter open right now.
All right, awesome.
Right now, we support out of this data center, we support remote sites in Austin, Texas, Burlington, Canada, out in California, in Tennessee, in Austin, Texas, Hawkesbury, Canada, Montreal, and I have ERP systems that I'm going to be moving from a single instance pizza box out in California into the data center this Friday. What I was counting on previous to Zerto was copying 350 gigs to a direct attach, having them fly it here as fast as possible, copying that back up to the SAN and spinning it up, which we estimated was going to take a long time. And that amount of time was not acceptable to the OpCo, but at that time we said it's going to have to be acceptable because that's the only means that we have to get this done. Then I got Zerto installed. I got it set up. I got it replicating, and this Friday I'm going to click the move button, and it'll be up and ready to go in this data center in 6 seconds of downtime. Forcing DNS changes out will be what I wait on. So, I mean, it literally cut that down from 2 days or more. Seeing that actually everything worked, the copy down and the copy back up to a click of a button. It's re-IP'd. It's up on this SAN, and if something happens, I'm going to click the move back, and I'm right back where I was. Their operation isn't impacted. They can still produce their product. No one's going to go home because the server's down again, as you often hear. I have industrial automation systems being replicated from another site here in Georgia back to the data center, just to cover myself, because we have a number of automation virtual servers sitting down there that I cannot capture all of them in one night with a traditional backup. And if that went down, production would literally stop. So now I've got that covered with Zerto, and all I've got to do, again, is click failed, and I'm up and running in the data center. And then I'll reverse the process. If I have to replace a host out there, copy it back out the site, and at a scheduled, controlled time and manner, I'll sail it back to the site and reverse the process again. I'll be replicating back to the data center and covering myself.
Great. Sounds like you're getting a lot of benefit, which is fantastic.
Yes.
We do have a couple of questions. And Jayme, certainly, if you feel comfortable, feel free to jump in. I don't know if I mentioned to everyone that Shannon Snowden, our Senior Technical Marketing Architect, is on the line as well. So Shannon and I work very closely together. He's a little bit more on the technical side. I'm a little bit more on the product side. And so he'll be answering the questions that are kind of beyond what Jayme or I can handle. And the first one is networking, and my background is storage. So Shannon and Jayme, I don't know if you can jump in, but is layer 2 connections required?
Yeah, my networking goes with my Cisco engineer, who's currently off-site.
Okay, Shannon.
So it is layer 2, and we'll need routed as well. We just don't want netted between the sites. That's all. While I'm on, that's amazing if you think about what Jayme just told us. He's got at least 7 different locations replicating, and it's transformed his business processes too to something from days to minutes, which is fantastic. It's great to hear.
Yeah, actually, I'm talking with a lot of customers. I hear about the hit by the bus books, and I saw one. and it was about 6 inches high, and they're like, this is our process. And I couldn't believe how complicated that was. And then to hear, so you sounds like you have something similar, maybe not 6 inches high, but a couple of inches anyway. Now it's 8 pages.
Right. And ask those people how many have actually made it successfully through that book.
And that's the ones that know it and wrote it. Try it with someone who's panicking because everything's down and you're under pressure.
Right. Here, you do it.
Yeah.
Makes a big difference. All right, Shannon, one more for you. What about many domains example? One domain in one site and a different domain in another.
Well, I mean,
domains matter, do
they? No, because we're below that. I think that was in a way that was an application sort of question. Keep in mind, and Jennifer will go through this, that we are replicating virtual machines. So regardless of what's in that virtual machine, if it's a single domain or multiple domains, you know, we replicate that. There are, you know, certain guidances around an Active Directory domain of how you want to manage the domain controllers themselves, and there's different schools of thought because of how Active Directory acts when it's when you change an IP address, for example. It doesn't like that sometimes. So there's different ways of doing domains, but yeah, we're at the VM level, so we can replicate anything that's in that VM is going to be replicated.
Okay, great. And then this last one I can answer. So is Zerto still going to work with the new VMware? Yes. So we support version 4 and higher on VMware vSphere. Okay. So, and then a new question just came in on VSS consistency. I'm actually going to talk about virtual protection groups, so you'll see the application and crash consistency that you get with Zerto. So if we take a look at the BCD DR processes, so before, you know, and I think, judging by Jayme's Hit by the Bus book, this probably is simple compared to what he has, but looking at other customers, you know, it's a very complex process if you're trying to set up replication using physical replication with an orchestration tool. There's a lot of coordination between the two teams. You have to get VMs onto a specific LUN. Can't change that, leverage any of the neat features you have in VMware like vMotion and things like that. And you have this really complex plan. And then as you heard from Jayme, he moved from something that was really complex, very manual and inflexible, to something that is now 8 pages long, and that he can give to anyone to pick up and execute his BCDR plan. And you can see here that it's really easy. Talking with the storage team, you just say, hey, I just need to make sure you have enough storage to replicate these VMs. They'll allocate the space for you. You'll locate the VMs for a particular application and put them in something called a virtual protection group, which I'll cover in a couple of slides. You'll configure your policies for BCDR, and then that's it. Zerto does the replication. You can do testing, anything else you want. Everything is non-disruptive to your BCDR processes. So with that, we have Zerto Virtual Replication. So virtual aware, what do I mean by that? As Shannon mentioned, we replicate VMs, VMDKs. We don't care about LUNs. We don't care about the physical constructs of the environment whatsoever. It's at the VM level. It's software only, so it enables beautiful scalability. So as you grow environments, for example, if you're protecting 7 environments, you want something that's not going to put a lot of overhead within your infrastructure, and Zerto is built for that purpose. And Tier 1 Enterprise Class. So we have there, it's very aggressive service levels, and you heard that from Jayme. We have application consistency, which we deliver through a virtual protection group. And then it was kind of funny that Jayme said TiVo for the journal, because that's always what I say. So it gives you 1 hour up to 5 days worth of recorded time. What was the activity for this application over that time? So it's completely built for virtual environments in the cloud. So here we have an example of the architecture, and this is a simple overview. I say simple because here we only have 2 sites, and if you're like Jayme, you have many more than 2 sites. So you have the Zerto Virtual Manager. That's the only piece of the software that you'll touch. You can see it plugs right into vCenter server, and that's what manages all the Zerto Virtual Replication appliances. You can see that there's 1 per ESX host. It's a very lightweight piece of software. As Jayme mentioned, the virtual manager pushes those out to the hosts where you want to be able to do replication. And we have done some benchmark testing on the overhead of those virtual replication appliances, because if we are talking about ERP applications and applications that are running the business, we don't want to impact the performance of those. And we see about a 2 to 5% overhead on the ESX host as a whole. I want to stress two things. These are not agents. They do not require ongoing management and maintenance. The Zerto Virtual Manager takes care of that. And you'll also notice that we have one virtual appliance, not one on each guest within the ESX host. So you can replicate from anything to anything. So this enables you to, one, support new environments that you're acquiring so that you can have a consistent BCD Our process, and also be able to use older hardware. One of our customers, the Philadelphia Contribution Ship, they're an insurance company based out of Philadelphia that Ben Franklin himself started. Pretty interesting company. So they had a very, very tight budget in terms of DR, and so he was able to pull the arrays that they had in the back of the data center and send those to the DR site and replicate to those. So he was able to really reduce costs by leveraging his older hardware. Highly scalable, I think we talked about that, and you can see that the Zerto Virtual Replication Appliance is a key component to that. We also have very aggressive service levels. So it's not synchronous, but very, very, very close. As you saw with Jayme, he's seeing an RPO of, in the 6-7 second range. The point-in-time recovery, so we talked about the journal. So this is 1 hour up to 5 days worth of data. It's very, very granular. It's every couple of seconds. I also want to stress we don't use snapshots as the replication mechanism. We do continuous block-level replication. And then lastly, we have some optimization for your network. So we do some compression and throttling to make sure that your network is still available to your production applications. So we also have single vCenter support. So this is new in the release that was available just before VMworld. So if you have offices that are physically separated but logically under the same vCenter server, you're able to protect those as well. So we have support for a single vCenter. You'll notice that replication is possible from the local office into the corporate data center. Okay, we talked about, I mentioned the application protection group. So this is where we get into VSS support. So a virtual protection group is a group of VMs that support a particular application. So for example, you might have a database server, an application server, and a web server. So what you do is no matter where they are in the environment, you pick them out and put them together in one group. And Zerto will ensure the consistent protection of those VMs, no matter where they are. So this is across different server types, different storages, enables the full support of those advanced features, it gives you the journal-based point in time, and also provides VSS support. So we do support that application consistency. So the automation is another key component. So we've talked a lot about replicating the data and getting it from your protected site over to your application site. But that's really only half the story when you talk about BCDR. You want to make sure that once it gets there, it can be managed. You can get everything up and running really quickly. So we have full orchestration capabilities that are fully automated. So again, we protect virtual machines, virtual disks, replicate those over to the target site, and then when you hit the big arrow in the product, Zerto will begin to build those virtual machines on the target site. We don't have shadow VMs. And because we set up the policies in place ahead of time, the boot order, so the database server before the application server and then the web server, IP reconfiguration, etc., this is a really, really fast process. So Philadelphia Contribution Ship that I mentioned previously, so they had 10 VMs with 4 terabytes of data, and they knew they could get everything back up and running in about 8 minutes. The click to test anytime, very important feature for many customers. So we have a separate bubble network. If you have a separate bubble network within your environment, what you can do is fail over to that bubble network and you'll see exactly how things are going to work when you have to fail over. So this is a completely documented test. This can satisfy your audit requirements. Also lets you fail over. You can try it out if you want to fail over to a different point in time or something like that. And you can also clone the environment. So for example, if you want to do some test and development, use the application, use your copy at your application site to take backups instead of taking backups off of production. So you're able to clone the environment at the replication site and take more work off of your protected site and alleviate the burden. Okay, we also have web-based disaster recovery management, so this is new as well. So you'll see at the bottom right-hand corner, so that's right now it's set to test. That would be the failover button that you would click, should there be an example. So web-based, so you can access it from anywhere. It doesn't require the vSphere client. You get the tabbed access, so you can look at VPGs and things like that. And you have full functionality, so you can fail over from the web interface. So, and then lastly, it's good because we have quite a few more questions now. We really consider ourselves the platform for the cloud. We've talked a lot about private cloud BCD DR, so replicating between 2 sites or several sites that are all under your control, as in the case with TenCate. If you decide you want to evaluate a cloud provider, disaster recovery is a great way to do so. Failovers and outages aren't happening every day. This is something that's happening, once a year, hopefully. So this is a great opportunity to get comfortable with the cloud provider and see if you want to work with them in another way. And then lastly, for those applications that are just so complex, you don't want to deal with them at all, give them to the cloud provider completely. Let them manage the production and the DR instances of your application, and then you don't even have to worry about it. So we're built for the public, the private, and the hybrid cloud. So actually, I didn't put my email up here. That's okay. My email is easy. It's jennifer@zerto.com. And I'm the Director of Product Marketing at Zerto. We also include Jayme's email, should you have any questions for him. Shannon's email, should you have any questions for him. And then Joe is an account manager if you're in the Southeast. So if not, then maybe you want to contact myself or Shannon, and we'll get you in touch with the right person. So we do have a few more questions. And Shannon, I think this is for you. How does the VCA work with this?
Yeah, I was just getting actually a clarification from Brian. That's the vCenter appliance. We work no problem with the vCenter appliance. So, in fact, that's how my whole demo lab set up is with the vCenter appliance.
Okay, great. And then what kind of space or storage is required for the point-in-time recovery feature?
Well, the way that it works is we have a journal calculator, and we normally add in about a 5% for 4 hours as a rough sort of measurement. But with the calculator, you can get that down much tighter if you're tight on space, or if you're going to do very long testing. What you may want to use is our offsite cloning feature. That way, you're not burning up essentially temporary space on your storage. And the offsite cloning feature creates full clones of the VMs for like extended application testing, interoperability testing, that type of thing.
Okay, great. And it's always tough to estimate how many questions are in it and things like that. So I did leave out a slide on reports. So I'll talk about them briefly, and Shannon, certainly feel free to jump in and add anything that I might have missed. So we really enhanced the reporting capabilities in the last release. So we had the audit reports where you could see how much time a step took and things like that. So you'll see every step within your BCD Our process, what the time was. So this enables you to really accurately predict your recovery times. We are doing a lot with resource usage, so you can get a better estimate of how is my DR, for my DR services, what kind of resources is my environment consuming? Do I need to add a little bit more bandwidth? Do I need to add more storage? Things like that. And then also performance reporting, so you can see how is the overall environment performing and if any changes need to be made, if it's adequately meeting your needs. So Shannon, I don't know if you want to add anything on the report?
Yeah, actually I do. And Jayme, I don't know if you've had a chance to actually do the resource reports or not, but it's a very large spreadsheet that shows you the source site consumption of your protective VMs, but also the target site. So for planning purposes, you can look at CPU usage, storage usage, everything that is being used by the protected VMs, and it's in a very large spreadsheet with all kinds of details. So it's very verbose. It's sort of a child from our cloud services partners who needs this information because that's how they bill, and so it's very, very useful for your internal planning as well.
I've actually used I've published the web interface in SharePoint in order to let my bosses get their own reports.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah.
They keeps them out of vCenter, but here's your tab for reports. Get what you want. And I mean, my bosses, I trust them to do that. Plus, they know what they want rather than you sent me report A, but could you do me report A plus A, B, C, and D? And I'm like, man, well, here it is. You can create it, and you can get exactly what you want because you know what you're doing. And with the addition of the web interface, keeping it out of the vCenter console, I mean, that was a great option for me. So I've got a link in SharePoint they click on and report away.
That's a very great practical use case for our web-based UI. Even though that we still have the full vSphere client plugin, anything that's web-based is very powerful, and as Jayme's using, it can start streamlining some workflows of you not having to create reports for your management. You just have them go generate their own reports, whatever they want. That's an awesome use of SharePoint too.
Yep, and keeps them out of your vCenter.
That's good.
Okay, so we don't have any more questions at this time, so I just want to thank everyone for joining today. We really appreciate it. Jayme, thank you so much for sharing your story. I think, Shannon and I can talk about how easy Zerto is to use all day long, but hearing from a customer is so much more powerful. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, ma'am.
And Shannon, as always, thank you for taking the questions that I cannot.
Oh, thanks. If you're in Atlanta next week, we'll be at the VMUG. Jayme and I got a road show going, so.
Yeah.
That's right. September 19th, if you're going to be in Atlanta, you can see Jayme present in person. So again, everyone, thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you soon.